I'm your host, Tom Walters, and I am all decked out in my air traffic controller headset, as well as all my notes and all my visual aids for helping you discover the benefit of journaling. So thank you for coming. Now, one of the benefits of Zen Commuter, the iTunes and Stitcher podcasts that I host Monday through Friday, is that we learn different ways of becoming calmer, more peaceful, and more productive in our lives. I think I may have told you on that podcast, and I'm going to tell you today, that a lot of people just go through their days simply existing, not really looking at their lives. And as Socrates once said, a life unexamined is a life not worth living. Sounds a little dour, but he did have a point that we have to look at our lives and we have to become better at who we are. And that doesn't just come from waking up, going to work, and then having dinner and going to bed after maybe watching some cheesy TV. It means we have to put some time in to becoming better people. And how do you do that? As luck would have it, it's journaling. The benefits of journaling are so immense. It improves your life on so many different levels. Most of all, it eases stress. A lot of times stress builds up and we have no outlet, nowhere to go. Sure, we have friends, we have family, but as I've talked about in the podcast, every time somebody listens to you or imparts their belief system, they're bringing their history. So you may be saying something that you're hoping they're going to relate to, but they're just translating it through their brain, through their history. So you're never going to have a purely unbiased account of your day, or you're never going to have anyone who's just going to see things exactly the way you do. The good news is you already have a way, and that's with journaling. So to that point, it's going to help you de-stress. As you write things down, you're purging them. It's very cathartic. You're getting them out of your system. And depending on the journal, it's going to make you happier. You're going to see things in a different light because you're writing things down. And like I said at the beginning of the podcast, or at the beginning of this hangout, it's going to help you become a better person because you start to understand who you are by looking back at some journals and just writing some things down that you've experienced during the day. And again, depending on the journal, you're going to live with purpose. You're going to be actually going day to day with goals, with ideas, and not just kind of like a leaf in a stream, just being pushed around by whatever people are telling you what to do or how to act or what to think. And again, depending on the journal, it increases your confidence, helps you become a better person by understanding what things you need to work on and what things you do well right now. So to that point, why would you write in a journal? Why not just play it by ear, just kind of spontaneously go through life? Well, like I said, your memory, especially my memory, as I'm getting on in my years, and yes, I am a wizened 50 years old, your memory starts to fade. And things that you did in the past may have gotten a little grayer. And that's whether you're 50, 40, 30, 20. And the most important thing is you never really remember things as clearly as you think you would like to. Here's a great example. Suppose you went out with a girl or a guy and things were really rocky and tough and they just weren't working out. And then you break up. Well, 5 years go down the road and you're thinking back like, oh, I remember when I was going out with them and wow, things were really great. I'm like, why did I ever break up with them? You remember all the great times, the walks on the beach, the dinners, the dates, and you just think, wow, everything was really great. I wish I was there again. Why did I ever break up with them? Because in the past, things were rocky, but with those rose-colored glasses, your memory is just saying, oh, you know what? I just want to remember the good times. I don't want to think about all the times that were challenging or what have you. So your memory is shaky at best. So that's one reason. If you go back, suppose the day you break up with that person, you're right in and it's like, you know what? It was a sad day, broke up with so-and-so, we had a nice dinner, but realized that, we're better as friends or what have you. Then 5 years down the road, you look at that journal entry, you're like, oh yeah, you know what? It does become clear. And hopefully in that moment, you can look back and say, you know what? There were some good times and that was awesome. But you know what? I'm moving on. I've grown. So what's another reason you journal and not just keep things in your head? The very act of writing. Your brain goes through a lot of different processes when you actually navigate and create words and letters on a page. When you go from left to right, depending on what culture you're in, the United States, going left to right, making those marks on paper is creating a neural pathway so that you remember things a lot more clearly. Here's a great example. Suppose you are, I'm going to move this just down a bit. There we go. Suppose you're taking notes in school. You can remember that, right? Whether you're in college or high school and you're either writing notes in a margin or in a book, you know, you're at a lecture and you're just writing things down. And then somewhere like 2 days later, somebody's like, oh, what'd you think about that lecture we had on blah, blah, blah? Do you remember the professor saying, and you can just talk about one subject right there. And in your mind, you can remember writing those words down. You can see in your mind clearly where you wrote that down. So you're like, oh yeah, that's, you know, at the beginning of the lecture, I remember writing that down. It's at the top of the page on the left-hand side. So your brain not only just remembers the writing down, but even on a deeper level, it's creating pathways to connect that knowledge with kinesthetics, with your body, with movement, with touch. And to that point, this isn't going to do it, because the actual formation of the letters and basically creating those words is what's indelibly etching it in your brain. And a lot of times you write to-do lists and you might not get to everything, but you know that you wrote it down somewhere. Same thing, you know, if you write down something you need to get at the store and you forget your list, you look in your brain, you're like, milk, bread, bacon, oh, bacon. But you know, because you wrote it down. On some level, it creates a pathway. So that's another reason we journal. And like I mentioned before, venting stress. We go through a lot of stuff in a day. Sometimes it's really awesome. Sometimes it's not that great. And it would be cool that if we could have like well, that's why I think people like pets so much. You know, I don't know if you talk to your dog or your cat, but it's a vessel that just listens and just doesn't say, hey, you should have done this, or that stinks, or that was great, or, you know, why'd you do that? Just listens. And instead of keeping all that angst in there, I mean, suppose you have a tough day at work, you know, your boss gives you a bad review, or you get in a fight with your significant other, and you're just like, oh, and there's nowhere to go with that. Sure, you can do a workout, you can go for a jog, but wouldn't it be great to be able to just unburden yourself with all that? Well, that's where a journal is absolutely fantastic. You can just purge all that. And the book, this is just one of them. This journal is going to talk back. This journal isn't going to say, wow, you should have done this, or wow, that wasn't really the smartest thing to do. The journal is just going to say, yeah, right? Yeah, that's what happened, huh? That's how it goes. So it's going to vent stress. And I got a whole list over here. So, and increasing confidence. You're like, how's it going to increase confidence? Well, see this baby? This is the oldest journal I have. I started this in 1990, about 14 years ago. And the other day, as I was getting ready for this hangout on the air, I started reading a couple passages, and I'm not going to bore you or share this with you, but I just read some things and I'm like, wow, that was really a concern of mine. And it's funny to think about 14 years ago, what seemed like absolutely earth-shattering, and like, how is this ever going to get better? And right now you're here and you're like, look back, you're like, really? So it is all good. So you see a progression as you write things in your journal. You see yourselves getting better and better. The things you used to kind of vex you in the past, from here, you're like, really? Huh, okay. And you don't discount that, obviously. The things you're dealing with right now, you don't say, well, that's nothing. You know, suck it up. Come on. Get with it. Go on. Move on. Like, no, this moment in time, these things are pivotal. But to that point, they're pivotal in this moment. And a journal is perfect for helping you realize this moment and the moments before. making sure, of course, that you don't live in that past. We don't do that. We're smarter than that. So those are some of the reasons that you write in a journal. So one of the things I want to talk about, and going through my notes, is all the different types of journals that there are. So if we think about all the different types of journals there is a journal for traveling. Suppose you're getting ready to go on a huge vacation or taking a sabbatical and going overseas. Wouldn't it be great to write down all the different ways you've grown in that experience? You can give a day-to-day account of what you did, but just recording the different interactions you've had with people, become more familiar with the customs. So that's definitely one way. Another is a dream journal. You know, our minds, you think when we go to bed, our minds just stop. I'm like, oh no. Obviously, you know that you dream, but your dreams serve a purpose. Sometimes it's just stress relief, but sometimes your subconscious is really trying to work through some things that your conscious mind isn't ready to deal with. So it'll put images together, it'll put scenarios together, and it might even replay that moment that you might be wanting to forget or take out of your conscious mind. But your subconscious mind, when you're dreaming, cuts out all the stops and it just starts processing the things that you might not want to consciously focus on. And it'll put it into dreams. And you might wake up and you're like, I'm not sure what happened last night. But to the point, if you have a dream journal, and it's funny because this journal from 1990 has some dreams in it. But if I look back on those dreams and like what makes sense when you wake up, might not make sense right then, but if you write those things down, some of the images you have, some of the things that you experienced in that dream, and you go back 2 weeks later, you're like, oh, wow, that not only do you remember that dream, but you remember what the significance was and how, some of the feelings that were happening in your body when you woke up that day. So there are dream journals. There are event journals. Suppose you're getting ready for something you haven't done in your life, whether it be running a marathon, giving a speech in front of people, in front of thousands of people. Suppose you're going to sing or play an instrument for the first time in front of an audience. Like leading up to that whole event, wouldn't it be cool to really kind of be able to relive that event and all the things that are going on in your mind up until that point? I certainly know that when I was competing in a natural bodybuilding competition, if I had kept a journal, it would have been kind of neat to see when my workouts were so-so, when my eating was spot on, and on that day, oh man, I remember it in my brain. But like I said, it's not fading. But man, if I could go back and read an account of the day, that'd be really cool. So event journals are definitely something that is going to be helpful. So, but I talked about all the different types of journals, but one of the things I want to do, looking through my notes here, I want to talk about the 3 most important types of journals that are going to help you grow and how you're going to become better by looking at those journals. Now, the first one is a personal journal. And you might think of these as, I don't want to be gender specific, but you know, I think journaling's come a long way because a lot of times people think of journals as diaries. And journals and diaries are not the same animal. A lot of times people think, well, if I'm going to be writing in a book, what am I going to, lock it up with a piece of ribbon? I'm like, no. In fact, there's a great website called The Art of Manliness, which talks about how you can benefit from journaling as well. And I'll link to it actually in the show notes of the YouTube that we're recording right now to let you know where to go. But to that point, journaling is for everybody, men, women, young, old, getting it done. But the point I wanted to make is that a personal journal is one of the things that's going to help you vent that stress I've talked about, show progress, and help you become more introspective. So what does it entail? Simple. Just like you would think, each day you write about an event, you write about the entire day, you just encapsulate the most pivotal parts of that day, the challenges you had, the victories you had, and you just write them down. And to that point, just like I said before, like talking to your dog or your cat, if you do, or just having some place where you can just say, this really stunk, or this was really great, or like so-and-so really cheesed me off, or just a place where you can just write And again, cathartic, and get all that out without fear of anybody saying, wow, why'd you say that to me? Or it's like, why would you say that? Or why did you do that? Or wow, that's kind of silly that you thought that was cool. Nobody, no judgment at all. It's a place where you can vent, you can express excitement, happiness, joy, and nobody's going to say anything. And like I said, by that point, this journal right here, I read a couple days back, in 1990, and I'm like, I remember in my mind wrestling with those challenges, and now just thinking, you know what? It's like being able to go back and talk to your younger self and be able to say, you know what? I hear you, but it's going to get better. It's really going to be cool. So all the things that you challenge with it, losing a job or getting a job or boyfriends, girlfriends, you're just like, wow, you were so excited back then, or you really were traumatized by that. And now, well, if it's a good experience, you read back, you're like, yeah, that was neat. And my life continues to be really neat. Or a challenge, you look back, you're like, oh my God, I was traumatized by that. And now you're like, it was just a step to get me where I'm at today, which is absolutely where I'm supposed to be. So journals help you progress. And a personal journal really, it's like a time capsule. And for those of you who are younger, 25, 20s, 30s, you might not know what a time capsule is. But a lot of times, I think back in the 50s, and I don't even know fully what it is, but people would take lead, big metal containers, and a whole group of people would throw in stuff that meant something to them, whether it be pictures or love letters or, stuffed animals, whatever. And they'd bury it. And then they'd say, okay, in 30 years, we're going to dig this thing up and look at what life was like 30 years ago, all the different people. So that is why this is a time capsule. It tells you what was going on and helps you relive some of those times. So a personal journal is definitely going to be beneficial for you. So what's the next one? Well, the next one is one of my favorites, and it's a goals journal. Remember I said that Socrates told us that a life unexamined is not worth living? Well, so is a life that just goes on and on without point, without goals, without vision, without any desire to change or to work for something, to strive for something. So a goals journal, judging from my notes, is just that. So, and before I get into the goals journal, let me just tell you that a lot of times people think a journal is like this. It's like hardcover or really spectacular, really fancy. I'm like, there's this that one of my good friends, somebody I used to train, gave me as a going away present. This is my first one I showed you. This is the one I'm using now. But to my point, this from Staples is a journal. This pad of paper is a journal. So I don't think you have to get a $20 leather-bound journal for it to mean anything. In fact, I love this for that reason. I just carry this around, and if anything strikes me as something I want to remember, I write it down, whether it be a book, a movie, a quote I come across, anything. This is like my go-to day-to-day, just write stuff down that I want to remember. Ideas that I have for podcasts or for books, what have you, it's all right here. So don't get hung up on the thought that you need to have a leather-bound journal, because that's not the case. So the point I'm trying to make is with a goals journal, this is how I started. Let me go over why a goals journal is so important. A goals journal gives you something to strive for. A lot of times we come to the end of our lives, you think back, you're like, wow, okay, my life was cool, but I didn't really do a lot of things I wanted to do. And why does that happen? People think that they're going to live for like 500 years and just say, you know what, tomorrow we'll get it together. Tomorrow we'll get it together. Without anything written down, just swimming around in that brain, it's not going to get done. So I wrote a goals and gratitude journal. It's out on Amazon, and you can certainly purchase that. Or you can do just what I'm talking about right now. That goals journal, goals and gratitude journal that I talked about helps put those things in order, your goals and your gratitude. But the good thing about it is it tells you what I'm going to talk about right now. So listen up on this good stuff. So a goals and gratitude journal starts with a dream list. And that is exactly what this is. So you're going to get a pad just like this. And I would recommend a pad like this because there are no edges. You know, I love this one, but if I'm writing, I get stuck. You know, so I'm like, I can only write from here over or here to here because this kind of gets in the way. To that point, my day journal, nice and flat. I can write the whole way away. But the reason we're going to need to be unencumbered with this is we're going to brainstorm. So I want you to go to a special place where you're not going to be disturbed by anybody. No pets, kids, husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, friends, calls. Turn off your phone, turn off the internet, turn off your computer, and just relax. And you know what? Let's do it right now. Let's take a nice deep breath. Let's close our eyes. And we're going to breathe in through our nose. Hold it. And slowly let it out through our mouth. Take another deep breath. Hold it. And slowly let it out. So you're thinking, Tom, why do we do that? Well, it's to get us into a very chill space. The act of breathing through our nose and out through our mouth changes our brain waves, alters our brain pattern to allow us to become more calm. So to that point, we want to be calm before we start this project. So what you're going to do, you're going to get your pen. We're going to be writing, and we're going to be writing a lot. And I need you to think, if you had unlimited money, unlimited time, and unlimited talent, what would you want to do in your life? So to that point, you just keep writing. Keep writing, keep writing, writing. Write down anything that comes to your mind. It can be fly to the moon. It could be own a purple elephant. Just write it down, because the thing we don't want to do is censor anything we say, because our goal for brainstorming is to just throw everything out there and not have anything be limited at all, because your brain, it does it anyway. Here's a perfect example. You ever be at work or somewhere and you have a great idea, you're like, oh my gosh, that is really cool. And you start to think about it and you get all excited. But before you even have like 5 minutes go away, your brain starts saying, dude, somebody already thought about that, or you really don't have enough time to do that, or that's not as good an idea as you think. So your brain already starts limiting you. But to this point, we're not going to do that. You're just going to write and write and write. Things you want to have, places you want to go, things you want to do, things you want to be. You know what? I don't mind sharing a couple of these, 2 pages, just to give you an idea. Have a masseuse for massages every 2 weeks. Have a cleaning service to clean my house perfectly each week. Be self-employed. Be an author. Solve a murder. Teach. Be a travel writer. Own a restaurant. Own a plane or a jet. Travel around the world. Go on a Mediterranean cruise. Learn carpentry. You get the idea. Anything you ever want to do, have, own, write it down. Then you're thinking, all right, Tom, what do I do with that? Well, after that, you go through that list and you keep writing, again, not censoring. Just go till you're like, I think that's it. I think that's all the things I want to do, have, be. And then you're going to pare that list down to 10 things. Yep, 10 things. You're probably going to have pages and pages and pages. Hopefully you do, because if you don't, you need to go back, because if you fill up 1 page, you're like, that's it. I'm like, nah, I think you better push yourself a little bit more. There's a lot more things you want to do, be, and just keep going. But find those 10. Once you have that list of 10, then you're going to bust it down to 5. Like 5, yeah. And we're going to work through those things. And those 5 things are going to be the 5 top goals that you're going to work towards. Those are the things that mean the most to you in this moment. And to that point, we're going to make sure that they get done. And it's not a matter of getting done within the next hour, next day. These might be things that are going to take you maybe months, maybe years. But that's okay. Working on something, having a goal, striving for something, whether it be a year away or a week away, is what's going to give your life meaning. And if you just keep going day to day, cleaning, bringing the garbage out, going to work to a job that you don't like, coming home, living for a weekend so you can play a couple hours and get charged up to go do another week of something you don't want to do. That's not going to work. So we need goals. So a lot of times when you see those big goals, you're thinking, wow, that's huge. That is really overwhelming. And there's no way I can do that. Well, of course you can. Excuse me. And all it takes is busting things down into tiny, tiny pieces. And we're going to write down every one of those things. So in that goals journal that you have, you're going to create what's called action plans for each one of those things. And you're going to, for those of you who may have been in the corporate world or know what a project plan is, you're just going to bust that down and say, you know what? My goal is to go to Italy. Then I'm going to break down every step until I'm there, until I am sitting in front of the Colosseum, just taking in all the sights, having a nice bowl of gelato. That sounds good. So how do you break these steps down? Like I say, it starts with really small stuff. Step one could be, where do you want to go? Suppose you say you want to go to Italy. I'm like, Italy's a big place, and you can't spend the entire week seeing everything. So first step, spend 10 minutes online finding out what parts of Italy you want to go to. Write it down. Have a deadline, a date. Next day, figure out how long you want to go for. That's the next step. Good. Okay. Step 3, figure out how much it's going to cost. Step 4, determine how to arrive at that money, whether it be a vacation plan, direct deposit taken out of your paycheck, whether it's $5, $100 each paycheck, just have it go somewhere. And all these steps just add up and you're getting that momentum. And before you know it, you're standing in front of the Trevi Fountain, just living your dream. And that's one thing crossed off. And it's like a bucket list to some people, that's what they call it. But the good news is a bucket list is kind of nebulous and you might want to do it, but these things actually have plans behind them. So that's why a goals journal is really beneficial. It takes those things and gets them done. Gives you focus, keeps your mind focused on what your goals are. And we're going to talk about other ways in another journal, the next journal, to really formalize that. And the good thing is, what do I have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 pages of stuff. And these blue lines, that's stuff I've already done. So at that point, when you knock one off, throw another on the list and get going. So your entire life has meaning. And some of these things are selfish and some of them aren't. Some of these are actually, one of those things is to volunteer or give a large sum of money to a charity that means something to me. And these are all things I'm working towards, and they all give my life meaning. So that's the goals journal. It keeps you focused. It helps you prioritize your life. It keeps your values in check. And it organizes your life because, like I said, life goes by really quickly. And whether you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, or 50s, it goes by fast. And you don't want to be at the end of your life in that bed, unable to move as your last breath is ready to be expelled from your lungs and think, wow, it's been a cool life, but I really haven't done a lot. No regrets. We want no regrets at the end of your life. We want every day to be full and vital and passionate and have meaning. That's only going to be happening if you have goals along the way, if you do things that have meaning. And to the other journals before, the personal journal, those are things you can look back and say, yeah, you know what? My life really did mean something. And that's a cool place to be. So I saved the best for last. Let me get my good notes here. And that is the gratitude journal. And you've probably heard of all the journaling, you've probably heard about gratitude journals a lot. And why have you heard about them a lot? Because if you want to live joyfully, happily, you have to think about things you have, not things you don't. I'm sure you have some friends, and hopefully you don't have friends that just come up to you, oh, this happened, that happened. If you have Facebook, I'm sure you know exactly what I'm talking about. That there are people that just can't appreciate anything about their lives. They just concentrate on what's wrong, what they don't have, what's not going right. Well, gratitude journal is the exact opposite. It helps you become more positive by focusing on what you do have. And when you think, well, Tom, I don't have a lot. I'm like, you know what? You do have a lot. If you're watching me right now, you've got a computer or a smartphone or what have you. So, and while you might think, Tom, that's not a lot. I'm like, yeah, it is. You need to be able to look at things and see what you have and be grateful for the things you have. And when you have a gratitude journal, that is exactly how you live a life that has meaning. You start to become aware of all the things around you. So this one sits on my bedside table, and I'll tell you why that's important later. But when I wake up each morning, I think about the day before, and I write down 5 things that I'm thankful for. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of things I'm thankful for repeat and repeat and repeat. But if I keep putting them down, I start to lose momentum. It doesn't seem to be not that important, but it lacks meaning. So here's a great example. My family. I absolutely love my family, and I'm so thankful for all the things I have in regards to my family. But to my point, I wrote down my family, and that's it. I'm like, okay, I'm thankful. But after a while, I'm like, okay, that doesn't really have a lot of substance to it. I love my family, don't get me wrong, and I'm thankful that they're there. But if I dig a little deeper or write something a little more meaningful, then that's going to etch that gratitude in even further. So to that point, I'm thankful that my parents are still here. And the other day yesterday I called my mom and dad and I heard their voice, and it was awesome. And some things you just take for granted. You don't know what you have till it's gone. So I am so thankful. So one of the things I wrote this morning, I had a great talk with my mom and dad. And that's cool because I don't want to sound boastful, but not everybody has that. My grandparents aren't around anymore. So, and I'm thankful for when they were here, but I miss not being able to talk to my grandmother. Oh, I miss her Italian food even more. I miss them all, but they added to my life, and I'm very thankful for them. And to that point, gratitude helps us be happier and appreciate the things that we have. And it doesn't just have to be people. So when you're writing those 5 things down, right now I'm looking outside, the sun is shining. How many times you walked out in the rain and it's cold and you're like, oh, gosh, it is just cold and wet and this is disgusting. And conversely, you walk out and you're like, oh, what a beautiful day. The sun is shining. The clouds are so full. The sky is so blue. You can be thankful for that, You can be grateful for that and write it down. And it's not cheesy to write that down. You have to be looking at all the things you're grateful for. The world, the universe puts amazing things in your path. And you can either become blind to them and live a life that is just dour and sullen, or you can be thankful for all the things that are in your life. Your friends, your family, the sunshine, the fact you have a roof over your head, you have food in your stomach, you have a car that you drive. A lot of people don't have the things you have. So next time you get on an old pity party, it's like, oh, woe is me, I don't have this, I don't have that. Just nip that in the bud, and you know what? I'll be a little brash. Shut it. Just think about all the things you have to be thankful for. That may seem a little brash, but you know what? There are a lot of people, happier people with a lot less. So count your blessings and write them down. So in this journal, I've got the gratitudes. But what else do I do? Well, remember I talked about how journaling creates confidence? Well, the way that happens is, and I add that to the list as well. So I've got 5, 5, and 5. I got my 5 things that I am thankful for. Underneath that, 5 victories from the day before, 5 things that I accomplished or succeeded at doing. And how does that build your confidence? Well, think about it. If you have a list of things that you've done, there's no way you can look upon the list and say about, suppose you wrote down something that you accomplished, 5 things you accomplished the past 10 years. If you had tomes and tomes and tomes of books full of things that you've done, there's no way you can ever think that you don't have the ability to get things done, because you have empirical proof to say, you know what, I can get that done. I did that on January 1st or on April 11th, I did that. And you're like, wow, you know what? I know a lot of stuff. I can get a lot of stuff done. And that builds that level of confidence. As you become more comfortable doing tasks, you become more confident. And when you write them down, you have proof positive that you were able to do them and get them done. Think about this. And I use this analogy all the time. Remember the first time that you rode a bicycle? The first time the training wheels were off, whether you were with your dad, mom, brother, sister, whatever, and you're like, I was like, oh, this is going to be tough. I'm going to fall. This might not go well. And you were paralyzed with fear. You were going to do it, but it was scary as all get up. It was something new. The thought of falling or breaking an arm or leg was just out there, and you were just petrified. But now, if somebody says, hey, let's go for a bike ride, you're like, whatever, cool. Where are we going? You don't even think about it. You're confident that you know how to ride a bike because you've done it over and over and over. You've learned that skill. Well, if you write that in a journal, then you already know how to do it. Not that you don't know how to do it, but it helps you see how you progressed. Just like I was talking about the personal journal, things that used to be traumatic and problematic back in the day are nothing now. So not a worry. So that is the 5 and the 5. What's the last 5? The last 5 I kind of take from my goals journal. So, and one thing I want to make sure is that you don't have to have these 3 different journals going on at the same time. Find one that works for you. The 3 that we're talking about right now are probably the ones that are going to give you the biggest bang for your buck. So to that point, I always want to make sure I know what my goals are, what I'm working on. So what I do is I kind of combine the goals and gratitude together along with victories. So for my goals, one of my goals is to write a New York Times bestseller. I'm an author, so that's what I want to do. So to that point, I write that goal, and then I write a subtask of how I'm going to move closer to that today, whether that be starting a new book, organizing chapters, writing 5 pages, what have you, finding a literary agent, anything. And I just write that down. Writing that down gets it in my brain, and not just like, what did I want to do this morning? What did I say I was going to do this morning? So that is going to be very helpful. So you've got gratitude, victories, and goals. That is chock full of journal goodness. It's going to have you relaxed. That's going to have you moving forward. And it's going to have you confident there's nothing that you can't handle. That's pretty amazing stuff, if you ask me. So to that point, excuse me, how do you get it done, Tom? How do you make sure that you're writing in your journal every day? Well, that's what I want to talk about now, making it a habit. A lot of times, if you think about your life is just about habits, a collection of habits. James Clear, another blogger and entrepreneur, has a great article on habit, and I'll actually link to that as well in the show notes or in the YouTube show notes, so you can get out to that. But he talks about how, and a lot of people talk about how, that habits are just behaviors that have 3 different components, and it's called the habit cycle. You have a cue that reminds you to do whatever you're going to do. There's the act of doing it yourself, and then there's a reward. If you have those 3 things, keep doing them time and time again, it becomes something that is just automatic. So how can you make journaling the same way? How can you put it in that cycle? Simple. So your cue is going to be the journal itself. I told you earlier in the podcast or in the hangout that I keep that journal. I won't show it to you again so you don't get bored, but I keep that journal on my bedside table. So when I wake up in the morning, there it is. I see it. There's my cue. I'm like, okay, got a journal. And by now it's become beneficial. It's become habit and it's become beneficial. So I keep doing it. So I do it. So I write in my journal. I do all those things and then I put it aside. So the reward, well, for me, the act of doing it itself is a reward. But some other ways that you can get that reward in there, get a calendar. And not just literally a calendar. And yes, with the pen, check things off. So you journal, put that X, and just look at all those X's in a row. Woohoo! This is for something else that I'm working at making a habit, but it's near my computer. Every time I see it, I'm like, oh, cool, gotta get that done. There's my reward. That I checked it off and I got another thing done. So that's gonna help get that habit ingrained, that habit cycle. Cue, action, reward. So what can the reward be? Maybe if you do it first thing in the morning, go grab a cup of coffee. If you love coffee, that's it, there you go. It doesn't have to be, buying yourself a new shirt or dress every time you put something down in your journal. Simple things that are gonna actually link that positive thing to your action. So one of the things that I found very helpful is to make sure that I do it at the same time every day. For me, first thing in the morning is absolutely best. And I'll probably do another Google Hangout on here talking about how our morning routine is going to be the best part of the day. Well, not how it might be. It is the best time of the day. No emails, no voicemails, no nothing, no work. You've got hours to just do whatever you want to do. And first thing in the morning, your testosterone level's up, your creativity is highest, your energy is highest, your willpower is highest. So that is a great time to get all your journaling done. If you want to do it before you go to bed, that's cool too. Not a worry. And most importantly, and I'll be honest with you, there are times I've fallen off the horse with this, and I'll see it. I'm like, okay, there's some other things I want to do first, and then I don't beat myself up. I just say, you know what? That really added to my life, so I got to pick that back up. So realize you're going to fall, and just get back on the horse. Don't beat yourself up. Things are going to come up. As long as you get back on that horse, you're all set. What's that quote they say? It doesn't matter how many times you fall. What matters is how many times you get back up. I like that. And that was not verbatim. Somebody said it much more articulately than that. So today we talked about all the different types of journals that there are. We talked about the three most important types: the personal journal, the goals journal, and the gratitude, victories, and goals journal. Those three things are going to really give your life purpose, because they show you, and I don't want to beat a dead horse, a lot of horse metaphors coming up, but it shows you how far you've come. It gives you something to work for. And you know that when you're working towards something that's meaningful for you, you just feel alive. I did a podcast yesterday on procrastination. Now, a lot of times there's some things that come up we don't really want to do, and we put them off. But to that point, the antithesis, when you are in a project or doing something that really resonates within you, makes you happy, oh, you get so excited. So suppose you love spending time with your kids. You know what? That's awesome. So the time you're spending with your kids, you're happiest. You can either write down the journal of things you've done, but the point I'm trying to make is do things that make you happy and your life will be happy. It's not really rocket science. So we've got those different types of journals. We learned that journaling helps release stress. It helps us become more introspective. It helps us be more focused. And as I just talked about, we've learned how to make that a habit. Do it the same time every day. Make sure you're completing that habit circle, which is cue, action, reward, cue, action, reward. And I think a lot of people are at odds as to how many days you do something in succession before it becomes a habit. 21 days, 30 days. I think it's really irrelevant how many days it is, as long as you're getting that circle in there. You know, if you get the cue, the action, the reward, keep doing that. That reward is going to create a path, a neural path as well. So it's just going to be part of what you do. You take a shower every morning, right? You don't think about, okay, what's my cue? What's my action? What's my reward? You just do it. It just becomes automatic. Hopefully journaling will be the exact same thing, because it's going to add to your life. It does add to your life. You know, the reason I did this podcast was because I looked at all the episodes of Zen Commuter. And by all means, check out Zen Commuter if you want daily inspiration as to how to live more fully and more peacefully. But I looked at all the episodes. I've had 159 episodes right now. And the two top listened to episodes are about journaling. So I know what benefit it is, but I'm thinking, like, if I know what it is and people are asking about it, I think it's time to get that out there and let people know how that they can do it on their own. And hopefully, you know what, I won't say hopefully, I know that this has been beneficial for you, letting you know that it's a beneficial practice and how to go about getting it done. So I want to thank you all for joining me here today. There will be plenty more Google Hangouts on air now that I know how to get it done. And you guys will hopefully be joining me live next time. I want to get a little confidence under my belt before I invite you along. So this is going to be out on YouTube. So I will share that link with the people on Zen Commuter. So by all means, go out there and check it out and share it with your friends. And of course, listen to Zen Commuter. I talked about one thing today that's going to help you become more peaceful, calmer. But we talk about things every day about how to become happier, more fulfilled. And that's on Stitcher and on iTunes. So until next time, my friends, thank you so much for your time. And this is Tom Walters signing off. Thanks and have an amazing day.